we're just running a little bit behind because. No, that's fine. Welcome to the Planning Commission Workshop Meeting for Tuesday, February 18th of 2025. We have here, gee, it's just myself. I'm Wayne Dealer. I am chairman of the Planning Commission. Online, we have Peter Rye and James Harris. And I'm not sure if Will has jumped on yet, but sometimes he runs a little late because of his job. Luckily, this being a workshop meeting, we do not need a quorum. So we also have Matt Fessler here as our acting solicitor, Shannon Caligari from Hailstone, and then Jerome Skrinkowski from Hawk Valley, and Simon Bongolo, who is our planning manager, and Emily from the zoning department. So I'm going to see if we can get the new agenda put up on the board. Hey, there it is, so that everybody can see it. We were asked to take a few things off from my original ideas and revamp them a little bit. So if everyone can take a look at the agenda and James and Peter, does the agenda look okay for you?
It looks fine. I just
Yeah, it's fine.
want to make you aware that I'm actually in China. It's actually very early in the morning here, and I have about an hour before I need to turn off and get ready to pitch a ride on a train.
Well,
I can top that. I'm in Limerick on Route 422, so.
Wow.
Stuck in traffic, yeah. So I'm in 422.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join us because Shannon is going to give us an update. Sorry to say, even though I invited the redevelopment authority, no one is here from the redevelopment authority. But Shannon is here to give us an update on the blighted property process, because it is a policy of the administration to get as many new units online as possible, and part of that strategy is the blighted process system that has been held up for as long as I know by the redevelopment authority. So I've asked Shannon to come in and explain the process and to give us any updates, because I know she's working very closely with the redevelopment authority. So I will turn it over to Shannon and let her do her thing.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight, Wayne. My name is Shannon Caligari with Hailstone Economic, and we have been supporting both the Community Development Department as well as the Redevelopment Authority for the last several years. And I was asked to talk about the blighted property process. I have some slides to share with you, and I'm happy to email these after. But I think the easiest way to talk about the blighted property process, everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah. Getting some background noise.
You are. I apologize for that. I'm in a public setting. My schedule is completely free tonight, but I wanted to jump onto this real quick. But you can hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
So I apologize for the background. But So I absolutely want to kind of share with you the blighted property process and talk you through it. I think the easiest way to talk about it is actually talk about the law. So we can do blighted property, eminent domain in Pennsylvania because of a couple of different state laws. And so, given that the Planning Commission is very focused on, operating under the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, I think it's appropriate to talk about blighted property, eminent domain um, by sharing with you the law. But this is kind of a summary slide. Really everything I'm going to talk about tonight is included on the slide, and I only have 11 slides, so I'm going to talk for a couple minutes here. But really, blighted property starts with the City of Reading Code Enforcement Office. So they have a very active code enforcement office that issues property violation letters, and when they can't get the property owner's attention after setting violation orders, taking people to court, eventually the next step is to recommend these blighted bad properties to the Blighted Property Review Committee. Then the city has a Blighted Property Review Committee that serves the owners with a notice of determination, meaning that this BPRC has determined that the property meets the blighted property criteria. And if the owner fails to comply with this determination letter, then I'm coming through garbage. I'm so sorry. If it's better that I connect via my phone. I apologize. That's probably worse. Let me,
Say.
yes. Let me connect to my phone. Disconnected my earbuds. I really apologize. I thought this was going to work. Hey, can you hear me better?
Lots better.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I'm in a closet.
All right.
Who cares that I'm in a closet? Okay. So I apologize. I'm not sure what you heard, but basically all of this work is driven by law. And I was talking about the Blighted Property Review Committee has the ability to certify a property as blighted. And then the redevelopment authority gets involved, requests a reuse recommendation from the Planning Commission, and ultimately can file a declaration of taking with the county. So this is like the summary slide. I'm going to talk just quickly through kind of the pieces of the puzzle. So the redevelopment authority exists because of the urban redevelopment law. The urban redevelopment law creates redevelopment authorities and defines their powers. One of their powers is acquiring property via eminent domain. Not everybody can do eminent domain. Cities can do eminent domain, but redevelopment authorities can do really what we call blighted property eminent domain. So they can't necessarily use their powers for things like a municipality would use their powers for, but properties that are blighted, they can work with. So again, through this urban redevelopment law, I'm hearing something. Everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So the redevelopment, urban redevelopment law talks about having a blighted property review committee. And so the Blighted Property Review Committee is created by local ordinance. The City of Reading has one, and it must include these members: somebody from City Council, the Redevelopment Authority, the Planning Commission, and a mayor's representative. And so I think, Peter, you're the Planning Commission appointee to the Blighted Property Review Committee, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so this Blighted Property Review Committee, again, certifies a property as blighted to the Redevelopment Authority. And in order to do this, the property must be vacant. This is all defined by law. So the city of Reading is really applying this law, as do other communities across the state. But the property must be vacant. The owner has to be served with this notice of determination that the property is blighted, that it meets the blight conditions in state law. And they have to eliminate these blight conditions, and failure to do so could lead to condemnation. This is a whole process that is driven by the city clerk's office in coordination with Heather in the code office. The owner has the right to appeal, and I love making that point. Throughout this entire process, an owner has a right to appeal this process. And once the time period for appeal has expired and the owner fails to comply, then the property is actually certified as blighted to the redevelopment authority. Here's the blighted property definition. There's a lot of different blighted property definitions in different state laws. And in 2019, the state created kind of one law, one blighted property definition, I should say, that we all use to define properties, especially when it comes to how we can take blighted properties. And so we all have to be using the same definition. So then what happens next? Again, what is the role of the redevelopment authority? So the redevelopment authority waits for this list of certified blighted properties from the Blighted Property Review Committee. Once they have this list, they, how it works today is we take recommendations from the code office as to how to kind of prioritize the worst of the worst. And once they identify properties to potentially move forward with, the law says that the redevelopment authority has to request a reuse recommendation from the Planning Commission. And so we've been in front of the Planning Commission only a couple times in the last couple of years requesting this reuse recommendation. And I think, the urban redevelopment law was created in 1945. And I think one of the reasons why we come to the Planning Commission is that the redevelopment authorities also have the ability, to do urban renewal. And so those larger urban renewal projects, especially of the 70s, the law wanted to make sure that the redevelopment authority was hand in hand with the Planning Commission. And so if there was a comprehensive plan or a plan for how to reuse a part of the city, that the Planning Commission deserved to weigh in and make a recommendation for how the redevelopment authority would dispose of the property or redevelop the property. A lot of what the redevelopment authority is focused on right now, in particular, is these individual former single family dwellings that are blighted, that are coming, forward for blighted property eminent domain. And so the reuse recommendation that you guys have provided us a couple times is really just to align with the zoning ordinance. Nothing too crazy or exciting, but it's basically, you have a single family dwelling in an R3 residential zoning district. Your recommendation has basically been follow the zoning law. And if single family dwellings are permitted, we're going to recommend that you continue that. So I think the idea behind this is potentially much bigger for bigger urban renewal projects, but it's still a requirement of the law, and we will continue to bring, or the redevelopment authority will continue to bring these requests in front of you for reuse recommendations. Once they get that recommendation back, the redevelopment authority can approve a resolution to acquire the property via eminent domain. And so the redevelopment authority does a lot of things as they're kind of preparing to put this resolution in place, like get an appraisal on the property, make contact with the property owner kind of one more time to say, hey, we'd really like to resolve this without going through the eminent domain process. Can we get your attention? And so all through the process, from code enforcement to the Blighted Property Review Committee to the redevelopment authority, the goal is really to get the property owner to comply and to redevelop their property or rehab their property. But if they fail to do that, this is a tool. This is kind of a last resort tool that the city, the redevelopment authority has on hand. And so then we move to the eminent domain law. And that drives kind of the next steps for the redevelopment authority. You file a declaration of taking in county court. So this is a formal court proceeding. You have to provide, notice to the property owner, to anybody who has interest in the property. You have to gain service. Nobody's going to take a property from someone without gaining legal service. And then again, the property owner has the ability to file preliminary objections. They can appeal, they can fight this process if they want to.
What does that mean by gain service?
Gain services meaning that they have to, the property owner, you have to ideally hand a piece of paper to the property owner, and the property owner has to acknowledge that you have, initiated this process of taking the property away. You have to and oftentimes these, with blighted properties, one of the biggest challenges is that the property owners are missing in action. They live in another state. Some of them might be deceased. Some of them might be just trying to hide from you. And so you have to go find them. And that means, obviously the easiest way is to mail them a certified letter. That's often been tried many times before we get to this point. You can, post the property. You can serve or get a constable to go serve them. But at the end of the day, you have to prove to a judge that you've done everything in your power to notify and know that the property owner knows what you're doing moving forward.
Thank you.
And so then at the end of the day, the big thing about eminent domain is you have to pay just compensation. So again, we're not taking a property and not paying the property owner for the property. And that's why we'll do an appraisal. And what happens is that let's say the property is appraised at $30,000. Again, that's one of the things the property owner can debate in court and challenge. But at the end of the day, when the judge says we're moving forward with this just compensation, the fair amount is $30,000, and then you'll prepare. The attorney will prepare a distribution schedule. And so ultimately, oftentimes these blighted properties have a lot of what I call baggage, whether it's a mortgage or a lien. And so you'll get a distribution schedule. So for that $30,000, you'll divvy it up according to anyone who might be owed money. And oftentimes the property owner is, of course, the lowest one on that totem pole. And here's my last slide. These are two properties the Redevelopment Authority did take via eminent domain about 2 or 3 years ago, 638 and 640 Schuylkill. The property owner, I think, lived in Brooklyn, had owned the properties for 10, 15 years. The city had been trying to get a hold of them to rehab the properties for many, many years. And so these were two properties that successfully went through blighted property eminent domain. I know the Redevelopment Authority is really interested in continuing to work with the code office and the blighted property review committee to continue to identify properties to take through eminent domain. And ultimately, I think another important message about eminent domain, it's a piece of the puzzle. It's one of the tools, one of the many tools that you can use. And honestly, it's a last resort tool. You're not going to go eminent domain if there's any other option out there to get the property rehabbed. Including like one of the conversations is, can we just buy this from you? Amicable acquisition, I like to call it. Will you donate this property? Can we buy it from you? Because of course, every legal proceeding costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of time. And so if there's any way to resolve this without blighted property eminent domain, you do that. But this is a tool you have to be ready to use and have available so that you can use this to get these properties resolved. These are the worst of the worst. No one's going to probably resolve them unless somebody like the Redevelopment Authority can use their power to take action.
That property, by the way, is in private hands now and is substantially improved.
Yes. So the Redevelopment Authority auctioned those two properties off and is working closely with the owner to meet some timelines for rehab. So absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
That's actually good to hear, because for years things were stuck, and so I'm glad to hear that we have some movement on that. Do you have that picture of 205 Hudson Street? Just one of the questions I have for you, Shannon, is I took a look at the latest blight list, and my favorite place to look at is Hudson Street, and hopefully I did sound that. Oh yeah, there it is. This one? Yep, that one.
Okay, we're playing, but all of them?
No, just 205.
This one.
205. 205.
Next one down.
should be that one. Yeah. That property is on the blight list,
Uh-huh.
but yet it's lived in and it looks like it's been totally refurbished. What's the process for getting these homes that were fixed up off the blight list when they
Sure,
don't
so-
come to the?
Yeah, so Heather Sharing is actively following up on the properties that are on the blight list. And every time there's a blighted property meeting, I would assume, I shouldn't say every time, but oftentimes they put properties on the blight list during those meetings that I think are 2 or 3 times a year. And then other times they decertify the properties. And so they go back to the Blighted Property Review Committee and say exactly that. This property has been rehabbed. It's time to take this off the list because the property owner or the new property owner has resolved the issues causing blight. And so it's, again, if you see a property like this, let's just notify Heather. There's a lot of properties for her to follow up on. And so she probably just hasn't gotten to decertifying this one yet.
You're correct. And if the property changes hands, then it's then there's a recertifying step that goes.
Except there's a new law that was put in place. One of the great things about the Pennsylvania state legislators is that they're honestly always trying to create new laws to support blight remediation. And so, again, I talked about for the blighted property eminent domain process, you have to serve the property owner. Same thing for the BPRC certification process. An owner has to know that you are saying that this property is blighted. And so if you change the owner's hands, the new owner doesn't know, didn't receive all those letters you sent them or all those knocks on the door. And so you have to recertify the properties. But just a couple of years ago, the state legislature put a new law in place that basically says that once the Blighted Property Review Committee certifies the property as blighted, you can file, they call it a lien. You can file a lien against the property, which basically means that on the deed, there is a notice that this property has been certified as blighted. And so when the property changes hands, you've given them the notice. And so you don't have to go through the process of recertifying the property. And so I know that, again, the Blighted Property Review Committee is aware of this new law. And for some of the new properties that they're certifying as blighted, they are filing these liens with the Recorder of Deeds so that they won't have to recertify them when these properties change hands.
Yeah, another issue has been that when they do change hands, sometimes it doesn't go through the sort of standard real estate transaction process that we're probably familiar with. In other words, it's just sort of a cash deal, and it gets recorded, but there's no bank review, there's no title company involvement. So in the past, the new owner may not be aware that they're actually buying a blighted property or certified blighted property.
Right.
So this is a remedy for that particular instance.
That's also another good thing here. Yes, sir.
Now that you mentioned that, Peter, is there anything that perhaps we can do internally that can help us have these blighted properties on the radar so that new owners who are coming to own them should kind of have an idea of the fact that they are blighted property?
So when what's happening is that they're filing this lien on the deed. And so the new property owner, when they get their deed or when they research the property and they pull the deed, there's a note on the deed. And so that's one way to notify the property owners that these properties are blighted. Plus, they could just look at them.
Yeah, they could. It's beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Right. I see a lot of opportunity in blighted properties. But I don't know that anybody would be shocked that the city might have an issue with a crumbling building.
So Simon, to answer your question, I think that cities, I think we're getting better organized around this, but the redevelopment authority sort of is the next thing to get aligned with overall intent of sorting out blighted property.
And the advantage of the redevelopment authority, once they acquire the property, whether it's through blighted property eminent domain or amicable acquisition, I think one of the big advantages of the redevelopment authority owning these properties is they can help negotiate and drive the redevelopment. And so they can make sure that who's ever acquiring the property has the funding in order to deal with the property, has the experience. You know, some of these properties are in really bad shape and you have to, you know, have more than a hammer to fix them. You need some structural engineering. And so, as well as they can put deadlines or deed restrictions that say you need to do this within 12 months. I spoke to a property owner recently who had acquired like 12 properties. He's like, what's the hurry? I'm like, the hurry is that we don't want to stare at your ugly blighted properties anymore. And so when the redevelopment authority owns it, they can put deed restrictions to help encourage these properties to get redeveloped more quickly. So again, I think the redevelopment authority is a developer of last resort. If these properties were going to be flipped on the market, they would have already been flipped. And so I think that the redevelopment authority is looking at the worst of the worst. The properties that often aren't money makers, they're money losers, but they're for the good of the block. And so there's a reason to, I think, invest in improving properties, even if you can't make $1 million off of them. And so there's a lot of advantages for the redevelopment authority having a role, but really a role as the last resort developer.
Some of these need to be taken down. And now we have a considerable expense, especially if it's a former industrial building that could be quite large.
Mm-hmm.
An owner bought it at an auction for next to nothing and it's crumbling. You know, it's a danger to walk near the building. Of course, it's a big eyesore for the neighborhood. And it could cost a few $100,000 to take it down. This is very real. These circumstances are very real. So the redevelopment authority would have to make an investment just to stabilize the property in order to move it on to somebody else who can do something with it.
Actually, along that line, I drove to 631 Elm Street today, and it's being demolished. After 10 years of me, 10 years of me keeping up with it. But that's a big expense to the city, I would suspect.
Correct. The city building and trades department, you know, has a budget for demolition for properties that meet, you know, the definition and have gone through the legal process to be able to demolish them.
Which, since we have all of our consultants here, on a related note, you know, some of these old industrial properties, you know, we're working through the, we just got adaptive reuse approved.
Nice.
Oh, okay. But might soon be approved, let's put it that way. But another problem that we do have is property like we have these large industrial properties that are in the MC zoning district, that it might actually be better that we demolish them and put homes in their places. What is the best? What do we think it might be the best way? Do we do a zoning map change?
I think in this instance, we would want to do our comprehensive plan first. That's a pretty radical change. We did something similar that we were going to take on. We looked at doing some of the R3 district and making it commercial residential or commercial neighborhood commercial. And it was determined at that stage that we would hold back and wait for the comprehensive plan. If we're going to be making a change going from commercial or industrial to residential, we should have justification behind that. Doesn't say that it's not a good idea. It's just a matter of making sure that that's accountable in the comprehensive plan. but we certainly can do it right away, but I think that there'll be, when we do a zoning map change, we do have public hearings and also neighborhood meetings. And therefore, we may have some objections at that point.
All right. Does anyone have any questions of Shannon? Okay, hearing none. Shannon, I went through my stuff and I found my packet that I received from the Center for Excellence in Local Government at Albright College. I attended a blight workshop there back in 2011. And the whole thing was about new tools to address blight and abandonment. And of course, now that it's 14 years later, I don't remember much about what was there, except for things like conservatorship and a few other things that they talked about. The whole packet is, the whole packet from them is 56 pages, which I'm going to get a copy and I'm going to send it to you.
Sure, thanks. So I actually have a number of different PowerPoint presentations that I've put together and presented on a variety of blight tools, because I'm a huge proponent in municipalities knowing about these resources and having them at your fingertips, because every blighted property has a different story and a different way to resolve its problem. And so I'm happy, at a future meeting to talk you through a number of tools, because and all these tools honestly are based on state law that give you the power to do these things at the local level. So I'm happy to share, what I know about this tool of blight techniques at a future meeting if you'd like.
Okay, well, I will send you a copy of this also, so you know what I'm talking about. I remember it being a very good presentation because I was surprised who was there. I was like, there were like people from Birdsboro there, and I'm like, what kind of blight could you possibly have in Birdsboro? but there were representatives there to learn more about it, and I was surprised how actually widespread the problem is. But we don't hear about it in the other municipalities. Okay.
It's cheaper to
with
do
that-
greenfield projects than it is to do brownfield projects. So, but boroughs and townships still have some undeveloped land.
Yeah, well, we basically do not. So, well, I want to thank Shannon for joining us today and giving us this overview. And we will ask Shannon back at a future time to give us some more updates and also talk about some of these other tools and to see if we as Planning Commission can make these tools available to the administration. Not sure how better to put it.
Does anybody have any updates on where the city is with the redevelopment authority and I guess sort of rebooting it? Is that if that's fair?
I mean, I attend the meetings. The redevelopment authority is very interested in I think having a really strong 2025 and looking at acquiring properties, appropriate properties via blighted property, eminent domain, looking at their funding resources and going after new funding. So I think the administration and the redevelopment authority board is really hoping to make a lot of progress this year. I'm not really authorized to speak on behalf of them, but that's what I hear at the meetings.
Right. Good to hear.
Well, thank you
All right,
again,
well, thank
Shannon.
you. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me tonight. It's nice to see you. And I'm gonna log off if that's okay. Have a great night.
Oh,
Get out of the closet.
okay, thank you.
I gotta get out of the closet.
All right.
Okay, next up, we have an update on the phase 1 and 2 zoning amendments with Simon and Jerome, because they just came from a meeting with city council.
Yes, we had the hearing before city council. It went rather well. There was no adverse comments. So council will consider those all comments and information at a future meeting, which will be considered. And if all goes well, then we'll have those adopted. Then what we're going to be doing with phases 3 and 4 is community development. Will be evaluating or prioritizing what the immediate needs are. There are at least 14 to 16 amendments that can be considered. Some of them are in draft form already, and some are haven't been put into the prioritization as of yet.
Just to add on is that the council received the changes that were made on the amendments very well. And they are very happy that we have taken time and we have reviewed them consecutively sharing with the various bodies. And I think there was no opposition during the presentation, and all of them are happy to move on with adoption of these amendments.
Okay, great. Yeah, great. I did talk to David Hunter on the way up the stairs. He was also very pleased. He thought it was very positive. So I think we'll soon be moving on to the next set.
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to going over my list here. There was one thing I did want to mention. I can't remember what it is now, so it must not have been that important. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order?
It looks like we're going to have 631 South 9th Street land development. That's the correct address, right?
So the title of the land development project is the 630 South 9th parking,
Get it correct.
with the parcel address being 601 South 9th. They were missing their application and fee to the county. So they just brought that in today, and I gave it to the county. So we could still do our review, but it'll most likely need to be tabled to allow the county time for comment.
And there wasn't much of a stormwater management plan with it, but we'll have that one for consideration. That may take some time to finish, but not a considerable amount of time. And then we also have the Rack Union Center in the pipeline as well. They have to go, they just had their zoning hearing.
Yeah, zoning hearing board was pretty pleased with it. So I did emphasize in my staff report, and the board members did also emphasize during the hearing that really the final say will be with Tim Call, the city engineer, since he's the one that will be issuing the floodplain permit. So whatever relief that they hopefully may receive next month when the decision is rendered, at the end of the day, Tim Call makes that last call as the acting floodplain manager.
And forget the address, but the sports bar parking lot.
That was approved. That was approved. They, their engineers, Dan Onslayer, he needs to make a minor revision just to bring it. We made they made a couple of concessions to bring it into closer compliance with the zoning ordinance. So he just needs to make those revisions, and then they'll be submitting for land development. They are well aware that they need land development for that.
Parking lot will require stormwater management, and then annexations and divisions.
Yeah, there is gonna be a subdivision, annexation, and land development plan all in one. The parcel with the address 730 North Third Street will need to be subdivided. And then the portion of the North Third Street property that will be subdivided, the parcel with the Thorn Street address and the parcel with the Douglas Street address will be annexed together.
Then I guess historic. Will be
Well,
involved a little bit.
basically the little part of. I have to verify with Amy, but I want to say that the last time I spoke with her, guys, that little part that would get removed from the Third Street parcel
Yeah,
will effectively remove it from the historic map. That's how I understood it. I may be wrong, but either way, it's
show
not,
comments.
it's not something that would really, that they're not allowed to do.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, my only thing would be that before we accept the land development plan, that we wait, what is it, 30 days? For the people to appeal the.
Yeah, so we have 30 days from when the decision is rendered for any appeals to go through. So it's been, it'll be a week tomorrow. So they'll still have a couple more weeks. They had already submitted an application, but I hadn't intaken it because they still needed their zoning relief. So,
We'll wait till 30 days.
yeah, so
Yeah, that's the only thing.
if they happen to submit anything prior to that 30 days, I'll just let them know. That technically they have however many days at that point that someone could still file an appeal.
With the controversy surrounding this.
Yeah,
This project,
the biggest problem originally was just because at that time, it was being argued with the board that it was an expansion of a nonconformity. However, the part of surface parking area is permitted by right as an accessory use to a permitted use in that district. Whether that use is non-conforming or not, it is irrelevant. And so since this was gonna be accessory to that permitted restaurant, it was permitted by right. So it was really some design elements that they needed variances from. And after back and forth, they really only needed a variance for the buffer.
interesting. It's good to have an update because the newspaper did an okay job.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a lot of technical,
I need you back.
lot of technical stuff.
I can forward you my staff report and the decision letter then so you can take a look at it. I just haven't had a chance to update the website with the decision letter.
Very good. Hey, does anyone have anything else? Okay, hearing none, I will announce that our next regular planning commission meeting is Tuesday, February 25th at 6 o'clock. And then our next workshop meeting will be March 18th, also Tuesday at 5:30. And thank you everyone for joining us. I will also mention at this time that Christopher Trocte has resigned from the planning commission. So if you know of anyone who's interested in joining us, please have them talk to the city council office and get an application.
Mr. Chairman, it's Will.
Yeah, hey, well,
Hello. Sorry, I've been having
Hello?
Can you hear?
He's been going in and out all day, or all meeting, I should say. I see him disconnect and then reconnect and disconnect and reconnect.
by chance.
Yeah. maybe it's like- yeah.
I think it's not-
I'm here. Did you guys freeze or?
No, I think we'll go off.
We're in our frozen positions.
So we're gonna give Will a minute to see if he can get back to us. But if you need to depart, Peter, feel free.
Yeah, I do.
And we wish you the very safe trip back home.
Sure,
And
thank you.
that your trip there is successful.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. See you guys.
Okay. Take care.
Done.
Okay.
The chairman says that.
With that, do we agree to adjourn, James?
Sure, I'm still on 422 in Exeter now. Very exciting. So yes,
Oh,
let's
my.
end the meeting.
Very good. Thank you for joining us, James. Really appreciate it.
All right. All righty. Kept me company on my travels.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay, we will adjourn the meeting and then we will have Will come back in.
Oh, hi, yeah, I keep losing my connection, sorry, but I don't want to hold you up, so, there's been an outage with Verizon for over a month and the internet connection was so sporadic tonight, I missed most everything, sorry, but I caught bits and pieces, but thank you.
We will get Shannon's PowerPoint presentation to you.
Great.
And the recording will be up.
You can listen to the recording too.
Yeah, and the recording will be up.
Right. Thank
So,
you.
okay, well, thank you, Will. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. And we will start.